Shalom family. So much going on in the world. Oh my word. I start prepping to go out on a ministry trip, and while I'm doing that, America joins Israel and bombs all the nuclear facilities. So yeah, things happen really fast here at the edge of eternity. But before I get into the news, and we're going to cover quite a bit in this video, let's just begin at least with Psalm 118, verse 24. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Now, it's a simple verse. It's very special to me, as is the entire Word of God. You've heard me carry on and on about the importance of the Word of God. But in light of what's happening in the world right now, everywhere, and the impending, overwhelming bad news or darkness or overwhelming hectic things on the horizon and all around us that could be damaging, or desperation, or all sorts of things, we will remember this is the day that the Lord hath made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. And you might ask, but Pastor, what are you rejoicing about? You're about to share some really bad news about what's happening all over the world. I rejoice because in the midst of this chaos, in the midst of all these bad portents and news stories and everything happening, I have Jesus Christ as my Redeemer, my Lord and my God. I have been redeemed, snatched from the flames as a sinner and brought into his marvelous presence. I am a child of God. I am devoted to his word and set on my course, awaiting the sound of the trumpet to be taken away and kept by him there where he has prepared a place for us. I hold fast to his promises because he who promised is faithful, as should we all. So nothing, no matter how bad the news is, can faze me or get me down, because my eyes are fixed on Jesus and his words and his promises. Nuclear missiles and bombs don't scare me or threaten me. News of earthquakes or tornadoes or any type of storm don't worry me. God is in control of my destiny, and my end position in this game of life is in his arms forevermore. And that is how we should look at everything. And we should be excited as we see all these things happening, because behold, our redemption draweth nigh. So, having said that, and balanced everything about to come with that, let's dive straight in. Israel has recovered the bodies of 3 hostages from Gaza. Israeli forces recovered the remains of Yonatan Samerano, Ofra Kaidar, and Shay Levinson, all 3 hostages killed during a Hamas attack on October 7, 2023. Now, I want you to realize when they keep recovering these bodies, and this is the concerning thing with those that are left, they still don't know how many are bodies. Many of these bodies have been bodies since 2023. There's not a refrigeration unit there. There's not a special morgue there in Gaza. These bodies have just been lying there since 2023 and only now being recovered. It's horrifying. Kobe Samarano stated that his son's remains were returned on his 23rd birthday. On his birthday. Prime Minister Netanyahu mentioned that Israel continues efforts to bring home the remaining hostages while engaged in conflict now with Iran as well. So it's still their highest priority, regardless of what else is going on in the world. And the world now focused very much on Israel, Iran, and Israel, Gaza, and Hamas, and Hezbollah, and Islamic Jihad, and all these other things happening at the same time. There's a lot of balls in the air that they're trying to juggle at one time. It's getting really difficult. Israel says Khamenei can no longer be allowed to exist after Iran struck the hospital in Israel. Now, Iran released these graphics showing that Israel's hiding tanks and a whole military base under the hospital. Then they said, no, The hospital is actually a military hospital and there's military operatives in it. All lies, because Israel doesn't hide behind civilians like the terrorist Muslim mindset does. With Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Iran, the Yemenite Houthis, all of them, they would use civilians as shields to protect themselves, whereas Israel shields the civilians. So yes, they attacked the hospital. Did the world carry on about that hospital very long? No, they've moved on already. Had Israel struck a hospital in Gaza or anywhere else, which was actually full of Hamas operatives and actually had tunnels and equipment and weapons and everything in it, the world would be screaming about that for months. But because it's Israel's hospital, silence. Crickets. So, death sentence pronounced by Israel on the leader of Iran. Grenade thrown at Norwegian ambassador's home in Israel. A grenade was thrown at the residence of Norway's ambassador, per Egil Selvag, confirming the Norwegian Foreign Ministry says that no one has been injured. The incident was condemned by Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar. I'm convinced the Israeli police will act decisively to quickly locate the perpetrators who committed this so they will be brought to the full force of the law. The motive behind the attack and who carried it out is still unknown. Norway's embassy in Israel closed on Monday due to the escalated security situation in the country. Who was it? Forces moving against Israel. Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, Iran, who knows? Any one of them could have thrown the grenade. What was the purpose? To get them to close their embassy and pull out of Israel, to isolate Israel on the international stage. And this is exactly what they achieved, in my opinion. Emily Schrader, Iranians quietly support Israeli strikes, hoping for a regime change. Schrader explained that as long as the State of Israel focused its strikes on Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps sites and nuclear facilities, it can expect widespread support from the Iranian people. So as long as they don't hit the actual Iranian civilians and others in Iran, and they focus on who they're supposed to focus on, they will have support inside Iran from Iranians hoping for a better, brighter future. Or as Trump says, make Iran great again. Operation Midnight Hammer. America obliterates Iranian nuclear sites as Russia and Iran push for World War III. Washington tells Trump after Iran strikes, no more forever war. Democrats and Republican opponents of military force against Iran were smarting after Saturday night's attacks, and many cast doubts on the US's ability to avoid what Senator Jim Risch, one of the administration's defenders, said would be a forever war. A number of Democrats urged more of their party to sign up to a resolution aimed at reining in the president's war powers. The resolution's lone Republican supporter, Rep. Thomas Massie, called on his party to do the same while condemning the influence of AIPAC, the pro-Israel lobby in Washington. MAGA should drop this pathetic loser, wrote Trump on Truth Social in a lengthy post against Massie. So a lot of internal turmoil in the government in America regarding the fact that Trump took the step to help Israel with neutralizing the nuclear threat that Iran was and is to the world, especially Israel and America. And now he's having to battle that internal dissent at the same time. Khatam al-Anbiya Central Headquarters. Powerful operations with heavy consequences await the United States. A statement from the headquarters. The criminal United States, in continuing its all-out support for the Zionist regime's aggression, has blatantly violated the sovereignty of the Islamic Republic of Iran and directly entered the war by attacking the sacred soil of Iran. This hostile act was carried out to revive the dying Zionist regime. Not only did it fail, but it will expand the range of legitimate and diverse targets for the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran, paving the way for a broader conflict in the region. We assure you that with this aggression, the clock will now turn in your favor. The warriors of Islam will respond to this crime with powerful and precise operations, inflicting heavy, regret-inducing and unpredictable consequences upon you, God willing. They basically called on a holy war against America all across the world. So it's not just your bases and everywhere else. It's anything they think is representative of you, the West, Israel, anything to do with that. And we've already seen attacks on churches in Syria that took place immediately. Iran turns to Russia for help as the US braces for more turmoil and terror warfare in the Middle East. The Daily Telegraph reports that Abbas Araghchi confirmed that Iran reserves all options to defend its security while applauding Russia as a friend of Iran. I told you, they're going to lean on this Russian relationship to get Russia to join if at all possible, and if not join, to supply them with everything they need to persist and survive and continue in their battle going forward, which Russia will do. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. Now, Medvedev's the firecracker in Russia. We always smile when we read his tweets and things he has to say. He's got no filters. And once again, he's actually probably overshared, and I'm sure Putin had him in an office and said to him, "What the heck were you thinking?" Medvedev warned that other countries are ready to directly supply Iran with their own nuclear warheads. Again, what I've been saying all along. Everyone's worried that they're developing their own nuclear weapons. They're getting to a point of enrichment where they'll be able to make nuclear weapons. Hello, people. They're best friends with Russia, with North Korea, with all these Muslim countries, some of them having nuclear weapons. Who's to say that China or Russia or North Korea or Pakistan or anyone else won't supply them with ready-made nuclear weapons? When you have an attack dog, a rabid attack dog, wouldn't you rather give them the bomb and let them do the dirty work, and that way your hands are clean? It would make complete sense. So Medvedev's saying other countries are ready to directly supply Iran with their own nuclear warheads is something we should have known all along anyway. It's not really a threat. What have the Americans accomplished with their nighttime strikes on 3 nuclear sites in Iran? Medvedev asks. Number 1, critical infrastructure of the nuclear fuel cycle appears to be unaffected or sustained only minor damage. Again, take this from the source it's coming from. Number 2, the enrichment of nuclear material, and now we can say it outright, the future production of nuclear weapons will continue. So there, and this is why I think he's in trouble with Putin for saying this out loud, there he confirms what we all knew all along, is that Iran was busy manufacturing nuclear weapons and working towards that goal regardless of anything they may have said publicly. Number 3, a number of countries are ready to directly supply Iran with their own nuclear warheads. Number 4, Israel is under attack. Explosions are rocking the country and people are panicking. Number 5, the US is now entangled in a new conflict with prospects of a ground operation looming on the horizon. Number 6, Iran's political regime has survived and in all likelihood has come out even stronger. He's obviously delusional. Number 7, the people are rallying around the country's spiritual leadership, including those who previously were indifferent or opposed to it. Again, incorrect. Number 8, Donald Trump, once hailed as president of peace, has now pushed the US into another war. Correct. Number 9, the vast majority of countries around the world oppose the actions of Israel and the United States. Number 10, at this rate, Trump can forget about the Nobel Peace Prize, not even with how rigged it has become. What a way to kick things off, Mr. President. Congratulations. And that's Medvedev's latest rant. So, yeah, really out there. Like I say, the biggest oopsie, I think, in the entire rant was the fact that he confirmed that Iran was trying to make nuclear weapons and will still work towards that goal. Regardless of that, they could still be supplied by friendly countries to them. What countries was he talking about? North Korea, Pakistan, Russia? Does it really matter? Any of them could have supplied China nuclear weapons to Iran when needed. Law enforcement officials expressed particular concerns about soft targets, including churches, synagogues, tourist attractions, and places like that are vulnerable to attack. Police departments in smaller cities across the country in America increased their security measures, citing concerns about potential threats during events and parades. So they're worried because they know Iran is a terror proxy and thrives on terror. So the biggest and easiest way that they'll attack and get back in America is through terror, not through a ground war or an air war. I mean, the F-14s are done. Russia says it was an irresponsible decision to subject a territory of a sovereign state to a missile and bomb strike. It grossly violates international law. Again, I'm just going to say it. Ukraine? Israeli air superiority is becoming a real problem for Iran. They have an abundance of missiles, but in most cases, they do not have the time or the freedom to prepare them to launch. Oopsie. Sorry about that. Are we cramping your style? If Iran attacks US interests, it will be considered an attack against NATO. So America's saying that too. Russian former president says a number of countries ready to supply Iran with their own nuclear warheads. As mentioned, the IDF struck 6 airports in Iran and destroyed 15 fighter jets and combat helicopters belonging to the Iranian regime. Iran's foreign minister landed in Moscow last night for an urgent consultation with Putin, maybe to pick up some bombs. The US is condemned by China for their strike on Iran, saying it's a violation of the UN Charter. The Pope warns of irreparable abyss after the US strikes on Iran and calls for an end to war in the Middle East. Not soon, dude, not soon. 4 official sources in the Iranian government described the atmosphere following the American attack on the nuclear facilities as a national defeat and humiliation, which is what it was, and said that there is significant disagreement about how to respond to the situation. Iran says it is coordinating with Russia and warns that the US should expect heavy consequences. Mr. Trump, the gambler, you may start this war, but we will be the ones to end it, Iran's military command spokesperson said. The bunker buster raid from Trump stunned the world and led the United Nations to hold an emergency meeting on Sunday, where officials said the US crippled Iran's crucial enrichment sites. Apparently not so according to Russia. In response, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi warned that his country will have to respond to Trump's aggression and said it was coordinating with Russia ahead of meeting with Putin. The Strait of Hormuz gets closed, then the experts say that the price of a barrel of oil will go from its present $75, as we said before, up to possibly $300 a barrel, which would translate into around $10 a gallon for you guys at the pumps. We're already in South Africa, due to this whole situation, going to see a massive increase in fuel as of the end of this month, which makes it more expensive to do what we need to do with our vehicles, drive around, ministry trips, work, anything that's happening. And we're going to see that rising systematically in the days ahead due to this whole situation. And it could, if it reaches $300 a barrel, cripple the economy. Companies could close down, especially trucking companies. People won't be able to drive anywhere anymore because it's just too costly. It could very well be their plan to get people to stay where they're supposed to stay and be more manageable. Who knows? The United States has identified signs that an Iranian-backed militias are preparing to attack American bases in Iraq and possibly Syria. Obviously, they knew this before they launched those stealth bombers to go in and take part in this attack. This would be something that would be happening. Flight tracker shows airlines avoiding the Middle East airspace after US bombs Iran. Live tracking shows a clear absence of commercial flights over Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Israel since Saturday, 21 June. And it's huge. You see classic, just huge amounts of aircraft, but that whole patch of the Middle East, clear, nothing. China, in the midst of that, flies secret flights into Iran as the mullahs vow no peace talks without Israeli ceasefire. Experts are ringing alarm bells as at least 5 Boeing 747s have been spotted on radar leaving China for Iran over the last week. It could be anything from helping the Middle Eastern country smuggle weapons in or cargo out to getting China's people out of Dodge. These types of flights are routinely used to deliver heavy weaponry, according to Laura Ingraham. It should be noted that both Communist China and Russia are solid allies of Iran and have been very quiet during the current conflict with Israel, except for outright condemning. Oddly enough, now this is interesting, the flight plans indicated that the plane's final destination was Luxembourg. They never crossed into European airspace, regardless of that. So they filed false flight plans to deceive. Considering 43% of China's oil and gas comes from the Middle East, of which a large volume of that is from Iran, you can also see how they have a vested interest in helping Iran survive and strike back, and see China as a very good ally so they can keep supplying them. We know this isn't good because the planes, this is the next big thing, so false flight plans filed. Why? Then the planes turned off their transponders as they approached Iranian airspace. Why? China is sending something it doesn't want the world to know about. It could be ammunition, it could be drones, it could be anything like it. It could be nuclear weapons. You won't know. But China filed false flight plans and switched off their transponders and have been landing multiple of these planes in Iran. Carrying what? And taking what out? That's interesting. Very interesting. Rising tensions. NATO fighter jets intercepted Russian bombers. In the late evening hours of July the 20th, Sweden scrambled 2 Gripen fighter planes in response to the sighting of 2 Russian military jets in the southern Baltic Sea. Now, that being said, they didn't actually enter into NATO airspace. They just came close, but it's again one of many confrontations as tensions keep rising in that part of the world. It takes one itchy finger, stress-filled fighter pilot to make the wrong decision while they're doing an intercept, and suddenly this war spreads even further. UK warship defies Chinese warnings to patrol disputed waters. China's military sharply criticized the passage of a British warship through the Taiwan Strait, labeling it as a deliberate attempt to cause trouble. The Eastern Theater Command of China's People's Liberation Army condemned the HMS sailing as public hyping. Beijing asserts that the waterway which separates mainland China from Taiwan is Chinese waters. In contrast, Britain's Royal Navy maintained that HMS Space transit was routine navigation, part of a long-planned deployment and in full compliance with international law. Tensions rising all over the world. Are you seeing this? It's really quite hectic that everyone thinks it's business as usual, and you've got Ukraine, Russia, you've got tension between NATO and Russia, you've got interceptions happening, you've got the Middle East as a boiling pot, all nations coming against Israel, Israel in direct conflict with Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, Iran now directly for the first time in how many years, and it's just war. Missiles flying, ballistic missiles, drones, warfare at a full scale with the potential to boil over at any time. Wars, rumors of wars, kingdoms against kingdoms, nations against nations. All these are signs of the times that we're living in. Are we afraid? No. If I had the funds right now, I would fly to Israel and make videos from Israel while the missiles are coming down and just be there prayerfully amongst the Israelis. I'm not scared. I'm not scared. These are the signs of the times. They need to be spoken about and pointed out as we barrel towards eternity at a ridiculous speed, and people still are not taking note. They are taking note of the latest Hollywood releases, when Superman's coming out, the new Jurassic Park, and any great sports stars or concerts that are happening. But the fact that the world is on the very edge of a nuclear disaster between nations, nope, that doesn't even make mainstream news in most countries, towns, or anywhere else, except for those who are awake. Further news. European Parliament backs mandatory microchipping of all cats and dogs in the European Union. My cat said, hell no. They ain't getting chipped at all, ever, if they try that in Africa. Scientists detect unusual airborne toxin in the United States for the first time. In a groundbreaking discovery, researchers from the University of Colorado Boulder have identified medium-chain chlorinated paraffins, MCCPs, a toxic organic pollutant in the air over the Western Hemisphere for the first time. Found by a Jewish researcher, by the way. This unexpected finding, published in ACS Environmental AU, emerged during a field study in rural Oklahoma, where scientists were originally investigating aerosol particle formation. The detection of MCCPs raises new questions about environmental pollution, regulatory oversight, and potential health impacts. Maybe Bill Gates is in the area? Who knows? And they're only detecting it now, so how far is it in the air supply already? And what damage is it already doing? Interesting. Then, this one here really just got my eyebrows raised, and I can only think judgment for what this generation is doing. A new report exposes how chemical abortions are tainting America's water supply. More than 40 tons of aborted fetal remains and abortion pill byproducts have seeped into America's water supply, according to a bombshell report from Liberty Counsel Action. One such effect of this happening could be infertility to the masses, given the fact that mifepristone blocks the fertility hormone progesterone. So, with your chemical abortions that are being such a huge thing happening, and with all of that waste now going into the water supply of America mainstream, now infertility is rising even more. Great for the depopulation agenda and the plan in the long term, but for me, a sign of judgment. You've killed these babies, why should you have babies? It's really interesting how that story has developed and how that consequence of this evil that's been done is now come to roost. Then persecution against the church keeps rising strongly all the time. In Wayne, Michigan, an attacker rammed his truck into a church, got out armed with a rifle, and opened fire on worshippers. Many children were present and many casualties are reported. You can go and follow it up. It's a developing story. Christianity under attack. And then 2 churches in Syria targeted by terror attacks, one in Hama and another in Damascus, with the casualties in the Damascus church alone being 15 dead and 22 injured at last count, most critical. The cowardly attack was achieved by a suicide bomber with a vest. Now, probably Iranian suicide bomber with a vest. The church is going to come more and more under attack as we head towards our departure point very, very shortly. And we're seeing that. Pray for the church that's under attack. Pray for the persecution that your fellow brothers and sisters are suffering. Pray for all the innocents that still need to meet Jesus Christ in all these war zones, from Gaza to Israel to Iran to Ukraine to Russia to all the nations affected, that the Lord still has divine appointments in place with people that need to come to a saving grace and knowledge of Jesus Christ. And don't let these things scare you or freak you out or stress you out. Be excited, for when you see all these things, look up, for your redemption draweth near. We're living in such an amazing time of so many things happening in front of our faces. We should be drawing closer to the Lord, spending more time in the Word of God and worship and praise. And you will see all your worries and fears and stresses drop away that the enemy wants to put on top of you. And you will feel the freedom of having that time with Christ, where He sets you free and breaks chains and lifts you up and strengthens you, for you were born for a time such as this. God bless. Keep looking up. Shalom.
Iran, we know exactly who you are. We know the destruction of Israel is what you want, and now we know something else. Your top commanders are fleeing, because even they no longer believe you're untouchable. If you're looking to threaten us with ballistic missiles, nuclear sites, and your terrorist proxies, we can tell you, you won't break us. We don't have a terrorist regime running our country, but what we do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills we've built over decades. Skills that have dismantled terror networks, neutralized nuclear ambitions, and forced your leadership into hiding. You've embedded terrorism into your government. You've turned the IRGC and Quds Force into global threats. And now, you're watching your war plans fail, your assets compromised, and your threats crushed before you even had a chance to launch them. We don't need to threaten you. We've already demonstrated what happens when we do find you, and we will find you again if we have to. But next time, you won't be able to run.